This is Mary, and this is Sovereign Light. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. As I do in the beginning of every episode of my podcast, I mention social media and audio platforms. And as addition to this, I'm on Substack. Have writings on Substack as a supplement for my podcast. And also, you enjoy my podcast, please share and follow and give me a rating. It's greatly appreciated. I'd like to hear from you all. I appreciate all the listeners out there. Thank you so much. So, audio platforms, I'm on Spotify for podcasters. I'm on Overcast, Pocket Cast. I'm on iHeartRadio, Pandora. And I'm looking to grow to wherever you enjoy your podcast. I am on that. So this episode is about my husband and I talking about the origin of Christmas and our interpretation of it, and our historical thoughts about it, and all of that. All right, so let's talk. Okay, so Christmas, this origin. So let me start out with saying Christianity in itself, I think spirituality is a good thing because it helps with a moral compass and to anchor yourself and to humble yourself about your position in life. You know, faith has its flaws, and that comes with a lot of times people putting the interpretations of what they see their faith stands with them, and then the imperialism of, oh, my faith is better than yours, and that goes along with it. But when you strip it and look at the core of Christ and the reason for Christmas, it's really impactful. You know, the story of a mother giving a virginal birth to the Son of Man, Son of Humanity, and then him growing and understanding and walking and staying true to his purpose, his faith and his cause of what he believes in, and, you know, being persecuted and killed for what he believed, but still standing in his faith, and then people witnessing this and believing in this and being persecuted too. And it's just really something to think about and to, you know, help realize the meaning of Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, and the biggest part of that is Christ has been to be the Son of God, and
right.
You know, the birth of the manger, because they couldn't find an inn. There was no inn. There was an available room in the inn. You know, it's very nice. You know, celebrating, if you're Christian, celebrating. You know, the birth of the Son of God, who eventually takes his Father's place as God. It's also one of those things where so much of, like, the holiday, of, like, the traditions and stuff, just like Christianity, encompasses so many other things. Like, traditionally, Christians weren't putting trees up in their house because that's actually a pagan tradition, to put an evergreen tree in your house to, you know, bring the greenness of nature and stuff in through the winter,
and
to, you know, make it to spring,
and to celebrate the getting through the laborious survival of winter.
Right, yeah, the dead months, the dead years. Oh, and even the Greeks, they believed it was spring, summer, all year round and stuff, but winter is when Persephone is forced back into Hades. The land is cursed.
Right.
She was allowed to roam and be out, but for a certain amount of time she had to be in Hades, and so the land was cursed with winter, frozen and dying. And a lot of these things, the Christianity, the church, was really good about tying in a lot of these things so people would be more apt and have an easier time. They didn't have to get rid of all of their traditions. They didn't have to stop believing everything. They were really good about tying things together and tying it in to make one, to try and make one belief, one religion, one ideal. Which, it is impossible. It doesn't work because there's different versions of Christianity that argue. It's ridiculous, but, the idea of Christmas, of family coming together, and whether you're celebrating the birth of Christ or just celebrating family,
right,
coming together and coming together with gifts and food and joy to get through what ideally is the hardest part of the winter months, because October, November starts the fall harvest and stuff, and December 25th, it lines up with the winter solstice, and that's when it really kicks into winter, the beginning of winter, around the end of December. But that's also, you're bringing all of these things. Okay, we're going to survive through this together. This is and it's crazy because even now, like this time of year, there's more depression skyrockets. Even with people say, "Oh, it's shopping and all that." That's without even the shopping and all that stuff. Even after it, January, February, March, until you start getting towards spring, this time of year when it's colder, darker, longer, things like that, depression is actually higher. People have less energy. We don't move around, and that's years of, you could not go out and do things. It was harder to go out, so your body slowed down. You said, hey, no, we're gonna stay inside. We're gonna do these things, one, to protect yourself. As a protection mechanism. But come spring, when everything's blooming and growing and turning green again, and people's brain chemistry starts to change, and there's a massive change in your brain chemistry. So coming into this time of year with happiness and joy and family and exchanging of gifts and food and kisses on New Year's, it's all something that anybody and everybody should find some way to take part in. Whether it's friends, family, squashing the old issues, whatever, just coming together with your community, with the people you feel comfortable around to, be together. If you want to come together around church, come together.
And the whole concept of celebration, as far as the secular and the faith sort of celebration of Christ, it's interesting because it was just this long feasting, and so debaucherous sort of celebration of the bountitude and the labor of winter, and just celebrating all of that. And then
and that was one of the things, pagans,
right,
from paganism of, we're going to eat a lot because you got to put on a lot of weight to get through, but also intentional breeding of, we're going to try and get women pregnant because this is the time of the year to where it's best for them to be pregnant, because getting pregnant in the summer months means that you're going to be delivering in the winter months, and it's hard for an infant to survive this time of year. Especially in the wilderness. That's why most animals don't have babies this time of year.
Right.
That's why spring is the time for new babies. It's because this time of year they're usually, animals don't normally carry for 9 months, but as wintertime comes to an end and springtime starts, that's when, you start getting all these little baby bunnies and baby deer and baby everything. But it's funny how those things, like, even though they transitioned a little bit, they really stayed the same. It's easier to survive when all the people of a tribe are together. It's easier to survive when everyone's coming together to feast and spend that time together. So, it's with modern Christmas, it's, let's fight against the loneliness and the idea of, everything so much harder, and, another year ending and all this, by coming together as a community, as family, to be with each other.
Yeah, and to add to this, with the modern sense of how we celebrate Christmas, the Victorian era really set the stage for it, as far as how to decorate the Christmas tree, and the celebration of abundance and gifts and goods, and the commercialization of marketing towards Christmas, because it led in to the different representations of Santa, and it's based off of Saint Nick and the story of his generosity, but modernizing it to where Santa giving the representation of being charitable and giving gifts to children, and during the Victorian era you see poems written about the ideas of the modern day Santa and all of this.
Yeah, and there's a lot of European countries that have vastly different depictions of Santa Claus. Like,
right.
In Europe forever, he was, depicted as not heavy, a thinner man, surrounded in green with like pine cones and a lot of evergreen stuff, but green and white instead of red and white. And, in Dutch, I think he had a similar type thing, but he didn't have elves.
Right.
And like there's so many different depictions of Santa. It's another one of those things where it's like, okay, things are going to just get meshed together and melded together to form one, and now throughout the world, there's just one idea, or there's more. It points more towards this one idea of Santa that takes in a lot of the traditions and stuff of a bunch of other countries and nationalities.
Right. So, this timing, the depiction and the story of Jesus. What are your thoughts about the idea of putting this idea that Jesus is sort of only what's the best way to say it? There's different facets about Jesus. He's of his purpose and of what he wants to do, but he's only trying to put a worldly the worldly human identity of the flaws of that humans have onto Jesus, and then not seeing the story for what it is. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like,
well, I mean, there's a reason why there's a giant gap in Jesus's written history from, I think it's like the time he was 7 until he was 13 or so. You know, there's like a 7-year gap or something like that, and that's you know, trying to figure yourself out, if, you know, trying to making mistakes and stuff. And there's a lot. I mean, the Bible was picked. There's books of the Bible that were written that were left out of the final version of the Bible, and there was, you know, there were meetings and people, kings and you know, people higher up in the church who came together and said, okay, well, these are the things that we want in the Bible, and these are the things we don't, and there were certain things left out and ignored, or, you know, we don't need this, we don't need that, we're going to have this, we're not going to have that. And there's a reason for that. So, you know, I guess ideally, if you think about it, if you created multiple species, created humans, created animals, created angels, and then the one species that you gave a gift that you didn't give anything else to, free will, you know, says, how can you know what it's like to be us?
Right.
So you made us in your image, but how can you understand what we go through? How can you understand us, our decisions? You know, so God putting himself, which again ties in very heavily with Greek and Roman mythology and stuff like that, with demigods, but putting a piece himself into a woman and her giving birth to the human embodiment of God. And this child is growing up being told he is Messiah. He is the child. He is the Son of God. He is the living incarnation of God.
Mm-hmm.
And then even as he becomes an adult, he struggles with it, and he prays, and he does so many things where, you know, he fights against, you know, what is meant to be destined for him. And then when he dies, when he's sacrificed on the cross, you know, it's intended so he can go into hell and he can defy Satan, which again, you know, Greek mythology and Hades had the rule of death. Hades decided who died and who lived.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and no one left Hades without permission and things like that. And you know, the idea of heaven is also a very Greek thing with Elysium,
right? Yeah.
Which is a place in Hades where, you know, you can go, like, there's different levels of Hades. Well, Catholics have the different levels of hell. But Elysium was the pinnacle where, you know, you wanted to be the paradise, basically. Well, Jesus dying and going into, you know, being dead for 3 days and then rising, it shows mastery over death and shows that, you know, he has taken mastery over death from Hades, from Satan, from the devil, as a way of, no, look, our God, he died and he rose again. Because that's how powerful he is.
Right.
You know, he went into hell and he came back. And because he came back, now he has opened a path to where you can go and be here. So, you know, but a lot of it is cherry picked, you know, and I think that's also why there's a lot of stuff that just doesn't make sense, because you had a bunch of different people writing a bunch of different things. The Bible isn't one book.
Yeah, it's a multitude.
The Bible is an anthology of books to an end goal.
So, I got a question for you. This is what my point of view is about it, and then I'll go into what some people think and everything else. So, picking what depicts what depictions and tellings of God, of Jesus, in the Bible. It was the canons were chose that way to make sure things are more concise, and they all, for instance, let's say, you know, the start of storytelling and history is oral, right? So if you get multiple sources and they're pretty much concise, that you can draw conductive reasoning that, okay, these stories must be true. Right. So let's stick to these stories and not go off on all these other tangents that depict and say these things, and they might seem, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's some of it, but a lot of it is also, you know, things cannot take away from the divinity.
No, things, that's right.
You know, and I can understand that, because you're trying to apostatize someone greater than.
Yeah.
And you can show the struggle with your humanity, but then becoming God.
Right.
You know, and that's the thing. That's when He died and came back, and then when he went to heaven, he became one with his Father.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's, you know, not only is Christmas a celebration of the birth of Christ, but it's also a celebration of the last sacrifice that would ever have to be made.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right. So I really appreciate all that insight and all of this. I'm very appreciative of it. And also, just to add on to this, feel free to, if you have stories of your own you'd like to share and talk about as far as Christianity and your thoughts about the Christmas and the celebration of Christmas and the origin of Christmas and the American depiction of Christmas, or the depiction of Christmas in a world sense, feel free to reach out to me through social media. Those links will be, of course, included in this episode. Email me. I would really appreciate that. And I would answer you, and feel free to express your thoughts about it. So this reaches the end of the Harboring Night. Tune in and turn up. Bye-bye now.